Hey, uh, today I want to talk about uh, the fact that there's some things in life that we just don't understand. And why is that? So I'd like to drill into that a little bit. I think the main reason that there's some things we don't understand is because we're relative beings. So to understand what a relative being is, we have to compare that to an absolute being. An absolute being would be something that knows everything all at once. Relative being only knows part of that. So let's look at the idea of consciousness. It's a unity to start out with, but it consists of two parts. Everything is consciousness. Everything that I'm experiencing, even though it seems like it's a material physical world, it is actually being constructed in a mind. And so, and this mind the brain is actually part of what's being constructed or whatever. So everything is actually consciousness. And we can divide what consciousness is up into two parts to help us understand it better. It's unity at basis. But, uh, the two parts of it are the potential, the world of potential, and the world of actual. Just as in the world of energy, there's potential energy and kinetic energy. In the real world, there's possibilities, potentiality, and actuality. Potentiality is permanent, unchanging, eternal, and actual world is always changing, temporal. To think about the potential world, the best thing to think of is the laws of nature. They're unchanging. You can think of cookie cutters and creating cookies, and each possibility you can create a star-shaped cookie or something. So the cookie cutters are like the potential world, and the actual cookies that are made, the snowman cookie or so forth, is in the actual world. So this is a division that will help us to understand why it is that there's a lot of things we just don't understand in life. So the potential world, if we drill into that a little bit more, we find that it doesn't exist in space and time. We can say that all possibilities exist on something a lot smaller than the tip of a pinhead. They are not in space and time. And absolute consciousness knows that all possibilities instantaneously. But relative consciousness, human beings, for example, know possibilities one at a time at a very slow speed. So, in order to look at a potential world a little bit more, since it's hard to think of things that don't exist in space and time, things that are mental, let's think of them in the framework of a pyramid. If we do that, absolute consciousness is at the top. Relative consciousness is down here, the human beings and so forth. Absolute consciousness knows all these possibilities all at once. Relative consciousness knows things beneath it, one at a time, possibilities beneath it. This pyramid represents the possibilities from the more particular at the bottom to the more general at the top. Uh, for each possibility, there's the best possibility. That's called the ideal. And so when we start with the possibilities at the bottom, we would start with the possibilities for the positions of subatomic particles. That's all they can talk about in physics. They don't know the exact position. They talk about probability waves of a particle being there. Then up a little bit higher, you get to atoms, molecules, cells, tissues, organs, plants, animals, people, so forth. And uh, another thing is that these possibilities can either be or not be. So there's two options for each possibility. And when you put all the possibilities together, they annihilate each other. This is matter and antimatter annihilate each other. So it produces nothingness, which we experience when we close our eyes and let our mind settle down. Absolute consciousness knows all these possibilities, but what it doesn't know is what would it be like to be a human being and only know a relative part, or to be a dog and only know a part, so forth. So the nature of consciousness is to know, and so it wants to know what this would be like to be a human being and so forth. So absolute consciousness takes on the form of a relative consciousness of a human being. And how could it do this? It can only do this by hiding what it knows from itself. How does it do this? Well, at birth, everything that absolute consciousness knows, if we consider this elephant on this side here to be the uh, pyramid of all possibilities, at birth, this elephant is covered by like a brick wall. A baby doesn't know what any of those possibilities are. It reveals those possibilities through experience, experimentation, logic, reason, and it reveals a little bit of what this pyramid actually is, one brick at a time. Different people reveal different parts of it, so we all have different perspectives of what the world of possibilities is. But that's how there's a kind of cloaking at our birth due to our limited sensory apparatus or limited mental apparatus, and this causes us to have things that we don't understand. But even though there are things we don't understand, there are some things that we can understand. For example, we can understand what the purpose of life is. The purpose of life is to go from lower forms of consciousness to higher forms of consciousness. Do you reach the top, and then you would want to know what's it like to be uh, in a relative form. So the purpose of life is to move up in the pyramid to higher forms of consciousness. All these things are conscious because if we define consciousness as being influenced by your surroundings, and even a subatomic particle is influenced by its surroundings. So there's lower levels of consciousness and higher levels. So the purpose of life is to move up the pyramid to higher levels of consciousness. We feel good to the extent that we're moving up. We feel bad to the extent that we're moving down. Goodness. What is goodness? Is another question of life that we can answer with this paradigm. of what consciousness is. Goodness is increasing levels of complexity, increasing levels of orderliness. As we go higher up in the pyramid, uh, the everything beneath it is summarized at higher levels for orderliness, like the laws of nature or so forth, describe a wide range of phenomena that are occurring beneath it. So, goodness is increasing in complexity, but it also means increasing in orderliness. If we don't increase in orderliness, increasing in complexity just leads to chaos. The final question that we can get an answer to, even though there are a lot of things we don't understand, is what is knowledge? Knowledge is not really, well, it is knowledge of the actual world, but is much more important is knowledge of the potential world, the knowledge of possibilities. This is important because that kind of knowledge can allow us to improve our situation when have problems, and it can help us to avoid problems. Thanks for listening.